Hi, I'm Steve Copnell from Cobra Garden. Today we're going to be looking at the new Mowbot range from Cobra. So we've got the 800 and we have a 1500 square metre model. So wire-free technology, so using the most advanced technologies from RTK and V-Slam technologies. So for all the complex gardens out there, this really makes it an easy installation. So what this video is about is to show you how simple it is to install. I'll go through all the map and just show you how we do the installation, show you what's inside and how easy it is to set up within your garden. Okay, so now we've got everything out of the box, let's just go through what we've got. So we've got our docking station here, so basically our charging base for the robot. There is requirements on where to install this, so we will go through that in a bit more detail later, but basically around 5 metres from any trees, obstacles or buildings. We then have our Mowbot, so we've got the 800 unit here, exactly the same as the 1500. Just show you underneath what we have. So we've got our 3 swing tip razor blades. Ideally wear some glove protection if you are replacing those, and the machine does come with replacement blades as well. So the robots are weatherproof as well, so ideal for all the bad weather we have, but you can also use water to clean those off as well. We don't recommend pressured water, but from a standard hose pipe it's absolutely fine. We also get our power supplies, both for the docking station and for the RTK antenna. So the RTK antenna is what gives us our satellite positioning, and that's how we can get our accuracy for the robot. So giving you centimetre accuracy with the fusion of the RTK and the visual camera system at the front. We get our full range of fixings as well for the docking station, just to make sure that's secure. And then what we have got is a very helpful quick start guide system for the user. This goes into detail on the actual app and also where to locate the RTK and the base station. And we will go through that in our next stage as well, just to make that a bit more clearer. User manual and also our warranty information as well for you. So before we look at mounting our docking station and our RTK, we really want to just be considering our surroundings. So every garden, every situation is different. So we really just need to have a bit of walk around the property, obviously look at different areas that we have where we are going to use the Mowbot. But things to consider before mounting the base station would be, ideally we need to be about 5 metres from a large building. We need power supply. So whether we've got like a garden room with power where we can cable into there, or if we've got external waterproof sockets that we can plug to. RTK is also something to consider. We need to be at least 5 metres from any large trees. So we don't want anything obscuring our views to the satellites. So the corner we have here for our base station, this would be a perfect spot. We've got nice level ground here. We're on the lawn, so we can mount it down with our fixing screws. And we've got power supply as well, just to get our connection. So we'll bring in our docking station, we'll get it mounted, and then we'll get the RTK secured as well. Okay, so we've got our equipment now in the ideal spot for our installation. So I'll just confirm what we have got. So we've got a separate power supply for our RTK or our docking station, or you can, for what we're going to do on the purpose of this video, is just fix them both into the power supply for the docking station. So this cable is only for power, not for transferring signals. But if you wanted them in different areas, so you can put your RTK on a roof, for example, just to give you better access, you have got an independent power supply for that purpose. So with the RTK setup, so you can't really get these the wrong way around. So we have a threaded insert on one end of the pole. That's just to mount your ground stake to. So now we're going to fit our top section to the lower. Just make sure that you've got the hole on the side towards the top, which is what's going to secure our RTK antenna. So we can locate them together with a spring connector. And then with the cable that's on the RTK, just thread that through the top. And we just want to bring that through the hole at the top. Feed that through, and then you'll notice there's 2 holes, one in the RTK, one in the pole, and we should have our screw fixings just to secure that top. So using the tool provided as well with the Allen key and the screw. So once you've tightened that up, we can then connect that end to our extension cable. We've got 2 ends, but we can only get one attached to it. So we've got the male connector on the extension and then the female connector on the antenna. A little groove on there just for the positioning, and then a threaded screw lock just to make sure it's a watertight connection. Okay, so our antenna is now ready to position. So just using the spikes, we just want to insert that securely into the ground. Obviously, if it is firm ground, just use a rubber mallet just to get that nice and secure. And then with the cable, we can either trace it within the turf just to make sure that's nice and hidden. And then we will just want to connect this then to our docking station. Again, you've got the nice waterproof connectors on there. And as mentioned before, if you did want the antenna in a different location, you have got a separate power supply just for having that in a different position. So now we're just going to move on to our base station. So again, ideally on a nice flat surface, just to give it a nice clear path for the machine to exit and also to make entry for charging. So we want it nice and level. Give it a little bit of space at the back just for your cables. Make sure there's nothing on either side, so don't block it into a corner. Just you want to give it a nice exit for the machine. And then what we have are our securing pegs, and then using the tool provided, we can secure this to the ground. So we have 6 pegs, so once we've secured that, we can then just go to connecting our power for the base station. So we've got our fixings in now, so the base station is nice and secure. So we've just got our electrical connection to connect, and we've also got a extension cable there if required, and then position the robot onto the dock for charging. So we'll get that powered up, we'll allow the mower to charge, and there will be an indicator on the screen just to inform you when that's ready, and then we can go over to the next process for mapping. And you'll know you've got successful power when you've got the green LED on the docking station and also the RTK antenna. So we press and hold the power button, and then you'll have a charging indicator, and you will know when that's fully charged once the charge is up to 100%. So you will notice you get a PIN code on screen, which is 7777, that's the default, and you can change that at a later date. So let's just talk ourselves through the user interface that we have. So we'll just look at the options at the top, and we've got LEDs there just to indicate whether we have that present. So we've got 4G, we've got our RTK, we've got Wi-Fi, which at the moment is in red, but we can connect that at a later date, and we've also got power. LED screen, giving us our instructions and our display. We've got play, so send out to mow, and we've got our on and off, we've got our return, and we've got our home, which will send the machine back to the docking station if it is out mowing. We've got our stop button, which then will stop the machine when it's out cutting. So once we've hit the stop button, we basically locked the machine. So we need to unlock that by pressing and holding the start and OK button. So we'll press them two together, and then we then unlock our screen. So if we wanted to go to our options, we press OK. So within the menu, we can set our cutting height. So that's the grass height that we want the machine to cut down to, which we can go from 25mm up to 65mm. We've also got a rain sensor. So if the machine is out cutting and we get a downpour, just on the top of the machine, you've got a rain sensor which will send it back. If you've got good drainage, you can basically turn that off and let the machine do its cutting while we have that rainfall. We'll keep our rain sensor on, and then we can set our date. Just rotate the dial to increase your numbers, and then OK to select. So the next stage of our process is to set up our app. So on the quick start guide, you'll notice a QR code. So you can scan that, register your details and apply for an account. And then once you've done that, we'll then go through all the step-by-step procedure to map our lawn. So now we've got our app registered and we've got Bluetooth switched on, we can now pair our devices. So we go to the plus symbol on the top right, and asking us to set up our network. Very instructional on this machine. It will give you step-by-step instruction on what to do and how to pair the device. So please power on the device and select our network. Hold the start button for 5 seconds.
Bluetooth activated. Ready for
voice instruction from the machine, and then the device will appear on your app. So we want to select that. Take a few moments just to pair to the device. It will then ask for our Wi-Fi settings, so we can do it at this point or we can do it at a later date. So we can skip the Wi-Fi at that stage, and then we'll get bind the device. So we can click bind device, and that just means we're basically pairing the machine to our app, so we have full control over the unit. We then come to a stage naming our device, so you can leave it as the standard device name, or you can personalise that to suit. Device binding successful, so we can just click OK. And we've then got our confirmation that we've now connected to our device. So we can tap the device and we can see that we've got no map there. So it's asking us to please create a map. We've got our map in the top right hand corner. It'll give us instructions on what to do for each step. So at the moment we've got no map built into the unit, so we're just going to do basically one boundary. If you have got different boundaries, multiple zones which you can add to this, initially you just need to do your first one and then we can build onto our map from there. So we'll go through our steps and it gives you guidance on I say creating multiple maps, different zones. Then we get the option to create new map, and it will just rotate your phone round as well. So the next option is to select our Wi-Fi for the robot, and we need to do that so we can drive the machine around our perimeter, and that will then create our map for our first zone. So we need to select our Wi-Fi. So the default password is 12345678, but please check with the quick start manual for your default password. So the next thing that will happen when you are connected to the Wi-Fi is the machine will exit the dock, so just make sure you are clear from the machine, and it will give you a voice prompt just to let it know it is doing that.
Keep clear. Machine exiting.
Once we've got that Wi-Fi connection, you'll get a voice prompt from the machine and it will exit from the docking station. Okay, so now the machine has exited the docking station, we then get our on-screen options for controlling the machine. So basically what we're going to do is basically remote control the device around our border, creating our boundary basically. So you'll notice you've got left hand and right hand controls. So a bit like a remote control car, you've got your forwards, your backwards, your left and your right. In the centre of that we've got a start button. So what you want to do is get it to a nice convenient place to start. Once you get round your boundary and back to your start point, you'll then get the option to finish and basically close that boundary. But it's worth just having a bit of a practice session first. So it won't actually start recording until you hit that start button. So just have a bit of a practice session just to get used to the controls. And once you've done that, we'll then start creating our map. So ideally we want to start, let's say, on a good straight run really, rather than starting on a corner. And you want to be at least 100 or 150 mil from the side or an edge. But with our lawn here, it is nice and level with the patio, so we can basically overlap that. But if we're up against a wall, we'd want to leave just about 100 mil, just clearance really. And ideally be behind the machine within about 3 meters, just to give you, make it a little bit easier to control. And you just want to be walking it around its perimeter. And certainly when you're mapping under trees as well, just to make sure there are no large sticks, and just make sure those are all cleared up before doing your mapping. So now we've just come up to the start point, and you'll notice on screen you've basically built a map, and you'll also notice you've got an option there to end. So once you press that, that will basically complete your first zone. And you'll get the prompt then to save, and the robot will indicate that mapping has been completed. Press complete mapping to save this. So if you have got more of a complex garden where you've got trees or ponds, etc., where you've got no-go zones, or if you have got multiple zones which you want to add with pathways, we can go through that now. So now we've completed our first boundary. It's now taken us to our maps, which we can see we've got one map on the app. So if we tap that, where we can either rename that boundary or we can delete it. But if we want to go to add, we then get options for a new working zone. So if we wanted to just add another zone, or what we need is the no-go area. What we've done here is just set up basically an exclusion zone. But if you have got trees or ponds where you've got roots or obviously the danger of water and the machine, you would want to exclude those from your boundary. So we tap that, and then again you'll get instructions and exactly the same controls that we had for creating our boundary, we have the same for creating our no-go zone. So you want to get the machine to the start position. Again, just give it a little bit of clearance from any object. Press start, and then we can literally just drive it around back to our start position. Once we're back to our start point, you'll get end on screen, so we just tap that, press complete mapping, and that will basically save our no-go zone within the map, and you'll be able to see that as a red exclusion zone. Okay, so now we're just going to set another zone. Once we've done that and mapped it exactly the same way, we can then set our corridor between the two. So always do your zones first and then you add your corridors afterwards. So if we tap that, we go to add. We then get options for a new working zone. Get it to a nice convenient place to start. Once you get round your boundary and back to your start point, you'll then get the option to finish and basically close that boundary. So once we've completed our second zone, we can just tap our complete map, and then we want to basically add a corridor. So we get the option for all three, but now we've got two zones, we can just go ahead and add our corridor. Again, some instructions there on just how to create a channel. So you can go from one zone to the next. It doesn't have to be 1 to 2. If you've got 5 zones set up, you can do your corridors sort of backwards, or you can add them in any order basically. So once you're in one zone, we can just hit our start, and then we just need to travel to our next zone. So be mindful of, obviously, if you're going across driveways where cars will be pulling in, or parking cars, because if there is a car that parks in your corridor, that's obviously going to really confuse the robot, and it's not going to be able to get to its next zone. So just be a bit mindful on where you are creating your corridors. So what you'll notice here as well, I am going across a gravel driveway, which is quite compact, so the machine is able to drive across it. And it's also just going up a slight step there. Obviously, if that was a much bigger step, the machine would struggle. So it's got to be a nice flat runoff for the machine to get on and off. So ideally a flat surface for the machine to get on and off. But I say it can be gravel, it can be tarmac, pathways. It doesn't have to be a grass surface for the machine to go through a corridor. The blades will stop rotating as well while it is traversing along that corridor, so you don't need to worry about any damage to your blades. So once we get into our next zone, you'll get the end option on screen. Press end and that will create your corridor. When creating or editing a map, you will need to press complete mapping to ensure this information is saved. Okay, so now we've got our home page, and you can see we've got our map created for our property. So you've got your multiple zones or your single zone, and then you've got your corridors and your no-go zones all shown on screen. You've got your detail for your area as well, so it will tell you exactly how many meters squared you have created, and also the cutting time for that. So you can either press the red button and play, and that will send the machine out to mow. But first we just need to make sure we are at the correct cutting height. So on screen we've got our height there for cutting, so we can basically just drag our slide measurement just to the required height, and then we can save that. Other options you may want to do initially is setting your mowing schedule. So options at the top, we can basically, into general settings, we get our mowing schedule. And that's where we can create our 7-day week cycle really, of how often we want the machine to come out, whether we want that night only or during the day for certain hours. That can all be specified within that category. On the home page, you'll notice the option indicator at the top, and there are a lot of options and features to specify and personalize the app, but also the robot as well. So it'd be worth just going through the user guide just to get familiar with those. But the most commonly used ones are your working schedule, your cutting height, and also your cutting directions as well, which you can specify and adjust for each zone. So we'll just go through the mowing schedule. So if you go to general settings, mowing schedule at the top, the plus symbol, and we can basically create a weekly mowing schedule. So we can have it coming out on Monday, a Wednesday, Friday, for example, or every day of the week. And that all depends on how many zones you've got, what sort of area, and how often frequently you want the machine to come out. So we just tap on the day. So just on Monday, for example, we can specify our time. So we can have that coming out at 8 in the morning. And we can also select which zones we want to be cutting on that day. So if we are a multiple zone user, we can have it cutting various different zones throughout the day, or if you've got certain areas which are under trees, you can have them cut a lot less because they will be growing not as quick as the other zones. So once we're happy with the time set and the duration, we can just save that, and then that will be stored, and that will be a repeated weekly schedule for the machine to operate. And that will be then saved, and we can adjust that as many times as we want to. Then we go on to our cutting height, and we've basically just got a drag cursor which we can drag that along from 25mm up to 65mm, and it's an electronic height adjustment for the cutting. So once we've selected our height, press save, and that will adjust the machine height for us. For mowing directions, so again in the options, go to settings, we've got our cutting direction setting, which will then take us to our zones. So we can independently select each zone. So if we start with zone 1, we then get our mowing direction lines, and we can basically rotate the cursor just to alter those directions. Ideally, you don't want to be mowing in the same direction all the time, so you can adjust that to suit for each mowing schedule. Once we're happy with that angle, we can save. But the machine will initially set its recommended angle for you. But depending on if you've got any narrow sort of corridors, you may want that angle just to be slightly adjusted. Same for the next zone, we can alter that to suit, and then we just press save in the top corner, and that will save our position for us. You'll also notice on the general settings you've got a rain sensor as well, so the machine will go back to its charging station if you do get a heavy downpour. But depending on conditions, if you are happy for the mower to be out, it will operate in bad weather, but it all depends on your conditions. If you have standing water, it's best to get the machine back to its docking station. But if you're happy for the machine to be out, if you've got good drainage, you can just turn that sensor off very easily. Another general setting is the maintenance reminder. So that's for your blade. So it obviously starts at 100%, but depending on conditions and how your machine's operating, how many meters squared it's doing, you will start to notice that 100% start to decrease. And that will then indicate to you when you want to replace your blades. So for any other information, you've also got your user guide, but you've also got an instruction manual within the app as well. So if you do lose your paper copy, you have got a copy on the app. So all that's left to do is just sit back and let your robot do all the work.
Remember to register your Cobra online at cobragarden.co.uk. Always have your Cobra serviced regularly. Check the website for your nearest dealer.